Hi, I'm Susan, and I'm 30 years old. I met my husband Ethan through a mutual friend, and after 2 years of dating, we decided to get married. While we haven't started a family yet, we're thoroughly enjoying our life together. Ethan's family owns a successful factory with around 50 employees. The company was founded by his late father and has flourished thanks to the hard work of everyone involved. Right now, Ethan's sister Maria runs the business. She's unmarried and has a natural talent for leadership, which she seems to have inherited from their mother, both of whom are exceptional communicators. Maria is warm and welcoming. She made me feel like a sister the moment we met, a stark contrast to the way I grew up with my brothers. However, not everything is without challenges. The factory is close to our family home, and since Ethan's father passed away, my mother-in-law has retired and spends her time looking forward to our 2 p.m. coffee breaks, which I've come to dread. Every time I'm asked to fetch her coffee, it feels like my mood sinks. She uses these breaks to express her discontent, often questioning why Ethan and I haven't had children yet, a subject that's out of our hands. If I don't respond to her probing, she becomes irritated and says hurtful things, questioning my worthiness as Ethan's wife and even making cruel remarks about my late parents. The tension between us dates back to when I first met Ethan's family. Upon learning that both of my parents had passed away, my mother from cancer when I was 8 and my father from a heart attack when I was 18, my mother-in-law was visibly shocked. I had a tough childhood, but my father raised my brother and me on his own, and I miss him deeply, especially since he passed away before I had the chance to truly show him how grateful I was for everything he sacrificed. Navigating these family dynamics has been tough, especially when dealing with my mother-in-law's harsh words. Yet despite these challenges, the bond I share with Ethan and the kindness I've received from parts of his family, especially Maria, has given me strength. I'm learning how to handle the more difficult relationships with grace. People often express sympathy when they learn about my past, acknowledging the hardships I must have faced growing up without my parents. However, my mother-in-law's reaction was different. "So you might not live long either, huh?" she remarked once, leaving me stunned with her blunt, insensitive words. Ethan was just as shocked as I was, but my mother-in-law continued as if it were a practical concern. As I struggled with my place in the family, Maria, who had been quiet until then, suddenly made her stance clear. Slamming her hand on the table, she interrupted the tension with a firm voice that cut through the silence. When my mother-in-law tried to seek Maria's support, saying, "Right, Maria? You agree with me, don't you?" Maria responded with a frosty glare and said, "What are you talking about? Ethan chose Susan himself, and she's wonderful. Why can't you support that?" Her protective words took my mother-in-law by surprise, and from that point on, the overtly harsh comments stopped, at least when others were around. The subtle digs, however, continued, especially during our one-on-one coffee breaks, where I could always sense her disappointment if I, not Maria, was the one bringing her coffee. Thankfully, Ethan and I didn't live with his family. We rented a nearby room, which provided some distance from her negativity, limiting our interactions to those brief coffee moments. Our respite from living under the same roof was cut short when a record-breaking hurricane caused severe damage to our apartment. The ceiling leaked so badly that it became uninhabitable. As we tried to manage the situation, Maria suggested we stay with them, smiling innocently as she offered a solution. "Why worry? Just stay with us. Your commute will be 25 seconds." Given the circumstances, we moved in with Ethan's family temporarily. When we arrived, my mother-in-law greeted us with a warm, though mostly directed at Ethan, "Welcome home, Ethan. It must have been tough, but Mom is happy we can live together again." Ethan, however, seemed distant, almost rebellious in his response. After a moment, my mother-in-law noticed me and remarked, "Oh, Susan, you're here too. I didn't notice because you're so quiet. Smile more." Her attempt at lightheartedness only added tension to the already strained atmosphere reflected in Ethan's frustrated expression. The dynamic in the house felt off, but this experience only highlighted the complex layers of family interactions and the resilience needed to navigate them, especially now that we were living under the same roof following the hurricane damage to our apartment. When we moved in with my in-laws, I knew adjusting to life under the same roof would be a challenge. To show my appreciation, I decided to cook a simple but hearty dinner on our first night: bread soup and steak. Both my mother-in-law and sister-in-law complimented the meal, easing some of my tension and offering me a brief moment of relief. However, just as I thought dinner was winding down, my mother-in-law surprised everyone by standing up, humming cheerfully, and retrieving a container from the fridge. She then generously topped her steak with its contents, which to my shock, was jam. The sight of jam on a perfectly cooked steak caught everyone's attention. My husband, sitting next to me, looked visibly disgusted, while Maria rolled her eyes and commented that no amount of persuasion could stop their mother from her peculiar food habits. She then burst into laughter. The pairing was, indeed, unusual. When you eat something salty, you crave something sweet, right? My mother-in-law explained, clearly pleased with herself. Despite her enthusiasm, the thought alone made my stomach churn. Sensing my hesitation, she encouraged me to try it, proclaiming it was delicious. I forced a smile, but it clearly didn't satisfy her. I'm recommending it for a reason. You might live longer if you follow my example, she added cryptically before leaving the room. Afterward, my husband and Maria quickly apologized for her strange behavior, explaining that their mother had an intense sweet tooth and never felt her day was complete without something sugary. They were amazed her health checkups always came back normal despite her odd diet. Maria revealed that she was often sent to buy cake because their mother found it embarrassing to do so herself. This errand had made Maria quite familiar with all the local cake shops. Ethan chimed in, expressing concern about their mother's health habits and feeling guilty that Maria often had to manage their mother's whims alone. Well, I think you guys will have to help out more from now on, Maria said with a cheerful grin, suggesting that we might be in for more lively interactions with their mother while living together. Despite the challenges of living with my in-laws, there were some perks, like the drastically shorter commute. But it also meant navigating the complex web of family dynamics, dietary quirks, and unexpected comments all under one roof. I had taken on the responsibility of managing the household chores, trying to keep everything in order before and after my workday. But despite my efforts to engage with my mother-in-law, she frequently dismissed me or reacted coldly. Regardless of her attitude, she never missed an opportunity to criticize the children during our coffee breaks. Since relocating here, my days had become increasingly difficult due to the added stress, which was starting to show in my mood. Ethan noticed this shift and suggested multiple times that we should visit a doctor together. He even proposed escaping to a hotel for a short break, but I declined, considering it an unnecessary expense, especially since the nearest hotel was quite far away. The situation worsened when my husband announced an upcoming week-long business trip, and to my dismay, Maria would be accompanying him. This meant I'd be alone with my mother-in-law, which filled me with dread. Though he offered to take me along, I decided against it, hoping I could endure the week on my own despite feeling unwell. On the morning they left, Maria sent me a message titled Mother-in-Law Survival Guide. The message humorously advised, if anything happens, just give her cake, and you'll be fine. It included a list of local cake shops and her favorite selections from each. Surprisingly, the quirky guide brought me some comfort as I braced myself for the tough week ahead. I was holding onto a fragile thread of optimism, convinced that once the week passed, our home renovations would be finished and I could return to our usual living situation. But that hope quickly faded on the first evening alone. I came home from work to find my mother-in-law blocking the entrance with an air of confrontation. She demanded, "You know why I'm angry, don't you?" I responded, a bit exasperated, "No, I'm not psychic." It turned out I had missed the scheduled 2 p.m. coffee breaks, something that slipped my mind amidst the chaos of juggling work and home responsibilities. With my husband and Maria away, I had hoped my mother-in-law would understand, given her own work history. But instead, the moment we were alone, she lashed out at me, accusing me of starting this harassment and calling me a wicked woman. I was stunned, feeling an overwhelming sense of disconnect. All I had done was inadvertently forget a couple of coffee breaks, yet I was being treated with such hostility. I counted down the days until my husband and sister-in-law returned, clinging to the hope that I just had a few more days to endure the tense atmosphere. During a particularly rough day, I bought a cake on my lunch break and left it in the office fridge, planning to use it as a peace offering for my mother-in-law. When I mentioned the forgotten cake later, her demeanor shifted completely from anger to delight. "Let's just forget today happened. Just don't forget tomorrow, okay?" she said with renewed cheerfulness before returning to her room. From that point on, I made a point to remember the coffee breaks, dreading the fallout if I slipped up again. but the stress of it all began to take a toll on me. The morning my husband and Maria were due back, I was overwhelmed with nausea, headaches, and a total loss of appetite. I couldn't manage work, so I took the day off and went to the hospital. The doctor's words shattered me. "It's quite serious. Can your family come right away?" I was diagnosed with cancer and given a prognosis of possibly only 2 to 5 months left to live. As I left the doctor's office, tears stained my face. I was physically shaking, emotionally spent. I returned home, collapsed onto the bed, and was immediately interrupted by the door slamming open. My mother-in-law stormed in, scolding me for skipping work while everyone else was working hard. Her harsh words only made my headache worse. With little energy left, I muttered that I was feeling ill and tried to turn away to close my eyes. She didn't let up, continuing to rant about my supposed inadequacies and even insinuating that I wouldn't live long. I lay there silently, feigning sleep, hoping she would leave. Then she demanded to know why I hadn't prepared for today's coffee break. Her insensitivity was appalling. I opened my eyes to find her hovering over me. "Grace, I'm sorry, I just can't go shopping today. Could you please?" I started weakly. She cut me off dismissively. "Get me chocolate cake, and stop faking your illness." My frustration reached its boiling point. "Shut up. Listen to me," I shouted. "I have 1 month to live. Go buy your damn cake, you idiot." The words left her speechless, her eyes wide in shock. At that moment, my husband and Maria appeared, alarmed by the confrontation. "Mom, what are you doing?" my husband asked. "What do you mean by 1 more month?" His face was pale, mirroring Maria's concern. Ignoring his visibly shaken mother, my husband rushed to my side, offering me the support I so desperately needed. His sudden presence brought a wave of relief, and I broke down, tears flowing uncontrollably. "I can't take it anymore," I sobbed. I sobbed uncontrollably, the weight of the doctor's words still echoing in my mind. It might be cancer, he had said, and I felt nothing but dread and sorrow. But through it all, my mother-in-law's relentless nagging to go out and buy cake was pushing me to my breaking point. Enough was enough. "Stop bothering me about the kids too," I snapped, finally letting the anger I had bottled up for so long pour out. "Just leave me alone, you idiot." The frustration I had kept hidden came flooding out, and as I broke down in tears, my husband and sister-in-law exchanged cold, disapproving glares with my mother-in-law. The absurdity of asking a sick person to go buy cake now seemed glaringly obvious. Maria, who was usually so cheerful, wore an expression of grim determination that felt almost intimidating in the tense moment. Then my husband raised his voice, revealing something we had kept private for so long. "You've been making cruel comments about us not having kids." "Well, the reason we can't have kids is because of me," he confessed. "After we got married, we went to a doctor. The tests showed that I have fertility issues." He paused, the weight of his words hanging heavy between us. "I never wanted to burden Susan with it, so we kept it to ourselves. But now you know." My mother-in-law's face drained of color as the realization set in. It was a blow she hadn't expected. Just then, my phone rang, the hospital. The urgency in their voice heightened my anxiety, and the tears began to fall again. "It's okay, Susan. Can you stand?" "I'm right here with you," my husband whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Together, we rushed to the hospital, my heart pounding in my chest. Once there, we were ushered into a room where the doctor and the hospital director were waiting for us. The news that followed was nothing short of a shock. There had been a dreadful mistake. My medical records had been confused with another patient who shared the same name and birth date. The diagnosis had been a misdiagnosis. I didn't have cancer. The gravity of the error hit me like a tidal wave, and the exhaustive faces of the medical staff made it all the more surreal. The mix-up even made local news, with the hospital promising a review of their procedures. They referred us to another facility for follow-up care. As we left, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of relief and disbelief. At my in-laws' house, Maria had clearly spoken to my mother-in-law, who now seemed to shrink in her chair, almost as if deflated. Later, Maria confided in me, her voice filled with emotion. "I was terrified, Susan. Terrified that I might lose my brother's wife." That moment of vulnerability between us helped heal some of the tension that had been hanging over our family. It was a painful but necessary revelation. Then, in an unexpected twist of fate, everything changed again. As Maria, with genuine concern, asked about my well-being, I found myself laughing through my tears. "I'm pregnant," I said, joy flooding through me. My husband's face mirrored my emotions as we both cried, overwhelmed with happiness. We rushed to the maternity hospital, and after a few tests, it was confirmed. Yes, we were expecting. We could hear the heartbeat, and the joy we both felt was beyond words. Maria, who had come with us, shed tears of happiness too. The roller coaster of emotions didn't stop there. Soon after, Maria announced her engagement to her longtime boyfriend and her plans to move to another state. It wasn't a surprise to us, though my mother-in-law was completely blindsided when she heard the news. "What? You're getting married and moving away?" she exclaimed in disbelief. Maria, ever so calm, reminded her, "Yeah, I told you about it before." But with everything finally settled, we all shared a laugh over her confusion. When we returned home, the renovations had been completed. The roof was fixed, and our room looked brand new. We cheered with joy, grateful for the fresh start that had arrived. But even amidst the joy, the atmosphere with my mother-in-law remained tense. My husband was particularly upset, harboring a deep anger that was hard to let go. He had even said he never wanted to see his mother again. Yet slowly, something shifted. My mother-in-law began to show up more often, but not with cakes as she had before. Now she brought healthier options like biscuits, a sign that she was trying to change. And now that she knew she would soon be a grandmother, she seemed to be softening. The employees who had worked with my father-in-law when he was CEO seemed pleased to see her, and I started to realize that she wasn't entirely unkind, just a bit misguided. Over time, our interactions improved. She began to help more, buying diapers, leaving homemade side dishes outside our door in a cooler so as not to disturb us. These thoughtful gestures started to mean more to me, and I began to see that we could actually get along. The moment that sealed this transformation came shortly after our daughter Catherine was born. My mother-in-law took my hand, her eyes filled with tears, and she said, "Thank you, Susan. Really, thank you." Her sincerity in that moment was the first real sign of change, and I knew it was genuine. Maria, too, seemed to be thriving in her new life. She recently shared her pregnancy news with us, and it felt like a full circle moment. Soon, we would all be gathered together at the in-laws' house, sharing a meal, not in tension, but in harmony. It felt like a new beginning, one I had never expected but welcomed with open arms.